Welcome back. Now that you've learned about the users, end users, user experience, and the user-centered design process, we're ready to go through other common user experience frameworks and their purposes. A framework creates the basic structure that focuses and supports the problem you're trying to solve. You could think of frameworks like outlines for a project. There are many UX design frameworks, and over time, these evolve or become obsolete thanks to the fast-changing world of technology. We've already discussed the user-centered design process. Now let's check out two other frameworks you might use: the 5 Elements framework and the Design Thinking framework. The 5 Elements of UX design is a framework of steps a designer takes to turn an idea into a working product. This framework consists of, wait for it, 5 elements: strategy, scope, structure, skeleton, and surface. Each element refers to a specific layer involved in creating the user experience, and each layer is dependent on the one below it. The bottom layer is strategy. This is where you'll define the user's needs and business objectives. The next layer is scope. This is where you'll determine what you're building. You'll decide on features and content to be included in the product. The third layer is structure. You'll figure out how to organize your design and how the user will interact with it. The next layer is the skeleton, which you can think of as the layout. Similar to how the layout of our bones shape our skin, this layer helps detail how the design works. But just like our bones, the user won't see these inner workings. Instead, you'll see the surface, which is the top level of the user experience. The surface is how the product looks to the user. So to recap, we have strategy, scope, structure, skeleton, and surface. Together, these layers make up the 5 Elements framework. A second common framework is design thinking. Design thinking is a way to create solutions that address a real user's problem and are functional and affordable. Design thinking has 5 actionable steps: empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. The first step is empathize, which is about discovering what end users really need and learning how to think and feel like them. You might conduct surveys, interviews, or observation sessions to paint a clear picture of who your end users are and the challenges they face. The next step is to define the problem by creating a clear problem statement. The problem statement is a clear description of the user's need that should be addressed. The problem statement should be based on user research, and it focuses the team on a clear goal. We'll talk about problem statements in more detail later. Once we've defined the problem, we can start to ideate or brainstorm solutions. You should aim to come up with as many ideas as possible. By focusing on the quantity of the ideas, not the quality, you're more likely to come up with innovative solutions. Eventually, we need to narrow down to a few ideas that we can prototype. A prototype is a scaled-down version of a product that shows important functions. You should have a clear goal for your prototype in mind. And finally, we test the prototypes with users. Testing keeps the user front and center, as it gives users an opportunity to provide feedback before the product is built. Based on user feedback, you can make changes and improvements, or come up with a completely new idea. Okay, now you know 3 of the most used frameworks in UX design: the user-centered design process, the 5 Elements framework, and the design thinking framework. Adapting any of these frameworks to suit your specific design needs is really important. Depending on what company, team, or project you work on, you won't use the same framework every time. Coming up, my colleague Shabi will talk about inclusive design. Enjoy.